The next morning, Adigo woke up early and looked at her mother. Her mother was still lying on the mat, weak and breathing slowly. Her mother's eyes were half open, looking at the roof, but she did not talk. "Mama, are you okay?" Adigo asked softly. Her mother only moved her head slowly, trying to smile, but she did not have the strength. Adigo's heart felt heavy. She looked around the small hut and saw that there was no food left. Their clay pot was empty, and there was no yam, no gari, not even water to drink. Adigo touched her stomach, and it made a small sound because she was hungry, but she ignored it. She thought about what she could do. She did not want her mother to wake up and find nothing to eat. She wiped her tears and tied her wrapper around her thin waist. She covered her head with another wrapper to hide her face a little. She stepped outside, holding a small bowl in her shaking hands. She decided to go to their neighbor's house to beg for food. As she walked, people who saw her moved away quickly, whispering and looking at her as if she was a spirit. Adigo did not mind them. She reached the first hut and knocked on the wooden door gently. "Please, I need food. My mother is sick and we have nothing to eat," she said with a shaking voice. The woman who opened the door took one look at Adigo and screamed, "Spirit! Spirit!" She quickly ran inside and slammed the door, locking it with a loud sound. Adigo could hear the woman telling her children to stay quiet and not come out. Adigo stood there, tears falling down her thin cheeks. She tried to talk to them. "Please, I don't hurt people. I am just hungry. Please help us." But the woman shouted from inside, "Go away, we have nothing for you." Adigo turned around, still crying, and started walking back. Her bare feet touched the dry sand, and the wind blew dust around her. She stopped halfway and looked back at the hut, hoping the woman would change her mind, but the door remained shut. Adigo wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She decided to try another hut before going back to her mother. She walked to the second hut. She knocked on the door, and a tall man came out with a big frown on his face. "What do you want here?" he shouted. "Please, I need some food for my sick mother," Adigo said in a weak voice. The man did not even wait for her to finish. He picked up a long cane and pointed it towards the path leading back to Adigo's hut. "Leave now before I beat you. We don't have food for spirits." Adigo raised her hands, begging, "Please, I am not a spirit. I am a human being. Please, my mother is sick. She needs food." But the man shouted louder, "Leave now." Adigo turned around and started walking away, her shoulders shaking as she cried. Her tears fell on the sand, leaving small wet marks as she walked. She returned to their hut and saw her mother still lying on the mat, sleeping. Her mother's lips were dry, and she looked weaker than before. Adigo sat down and cried quietly, thinking about what would happen when her mother woke up to find no food or water. She could not sit there and watch her mother suffer. She decided to try the market. She picked up her small bowl again and covered her head with the wrapper. She stepped out and started walking along the small bush path that led to the village market. As she walked, people who saw her started laughing. "Look at the masquerade walking!" Some children ran behind her, throwing small stones and sticks while laughing, "Masquerade! Masquerade!" Some people left the road quickly so she could pass, covering their noses as if she smelled bad. Adigo felt ashamed, and she walked faster, tears falling again. When she reached the market, some women were sitting with baskets of tomatoes, okra, and pepper in front of them. Some men were selling yams and bushmeat. Adigo walked up to the first woman selling tomatoes. "Please, Mama, I need some food for my mother. She is sick," Adigo begged, her voice shaking. The woman looked at her and shouted, "Go away! Don't come near me!" Adigo moved back, almost falling, and turned to the next seller. "Please, help us! I am begging!" But the man selling yams looked at her with fear. "Go away! Don't bring curses here!" Adigo moved from one seller to another, but no one agreed to give her even a small piece of yam or pepper. They all moved away, and some started shouting, "Go away, spirit!" Adigo's heart was broken. She was about to turn and leave when she heard a familiar voice. "Adigo?" She turned around, and it was Kari, the kind young farmer who had helped her before. Kari was holding a small bag of vegetables and some yams he had just bought from the market. Adigo's eyes were full of tears. "Kari, please, I don't know why people are treating me like this. I am a human being, not a spirit. I just need food for my sick mother." Kari looked at her with kind eyes and stepped closer to her. "Don't cry, Adigo. I believe you. I know you are a human being." Adigo covered her face with her hands, crying harder. Kari touched her shoulder gently. "It's okay, Adigo. Don't mind them." Kari took some of the vegetables and yams from his bag and gave them to Adigo. He also brought out a small bottle of palm oil and handed it to her. "Take these. I will come and check on you and your mother later," Kari said, smiling warmly. Adigo looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Kari. Thank you so much." Kari helped her carry the vegetables and yams, walking with her along the path back to her hut. As they walked, people in the market watched them, whispering and shaking their heads, but Kari did not care. When they reached Adigo's hut, Kari helped her drop the food inside. Adigo looked at the food on the floor and fell on her knees, crying, "Thank you, Kari. May God bless you." Kari smiled. "Don't worry, Adigo. I will bring water for you later." That evening, Kari returned to Adigo's hut, carrying a big clay pot of water on his shoulder and another small bag of foodstuff, including bushmeat wrapped in leaves. Adigo's eyes widened. "Kari, you brought all these for us?" Kari smiled. "Yes, Adigo. I told you not to worry." Adigo's eyes filled with tears as she muttered, "Thank you," her voice shaking. Kari dropped the pot of water and the foodstuff on the floor and sat down on the small wooden stool in the hut. "How is your mother now?" Kari asked. "She is still very weak, but she will be happy to see this food," Adigo said. Adigo cooked a small meal from what Kari brought, and she fed her mother carefully when she woke up, also helping her drink water. Her mother opened her eyes and tried to smile, touching Adigo's face softly. Kari watched them with a warm smile. "Don't worry, Mama. You will get better." That night, Adigo sat outside the hut under the moonlight after Kari left, looking up at the stars. She held her hands together, praying silently. "God, please bless Kari for us. Please don't let my mother die." For the first time in a long while, Adigo felt a small hope in her heart that things would get better, even if it was just a little hope. After a few days, Kari continued visiting Adigo and her mother every morning and evening. Sometimes he brought fresh vegetables from his farm. Other times he brought bushmeat, yams, or firewood for them. Whenever Kari entered the small hut, he would smile warmly and greet Adigo's mother kindly. "Mama, how are you feeling today?" Kari would always ask. Adigo's mother would smile weakly. "I am getting better, my son. Thank you for all you have done for us." Kari would look at Adigo and smile, and Adigo would smile back shyly, though her thin, bony face made it hard for her to smile fully. Every time Kari came, Adigo felt her heart beating faster. Not because she was afraid, but because she was happy that someone still saw her as a human being, not as a spirit. One evening, after Kari dropped some water and food, he sat on the small wooden stool near the doorway. The warm evening breeze entered the hut, and the small lamp on the floor flickered softly. "Adigo," Kari said quietly, looking at her with serious eyes. Adigo was sitting beside her mother, slicing some vegetables to prepare their evening meal. She looked up at Kari. "Yes, Kari? Please, can you tell me what really happened to you?" Kari asked gently. Adigo stopped slicing the vegetables. Her eyes looked down, and she took a deep breath. She was quiet for some moments, and Kari waited patiently, watching her. Finally, Adigo spoke in a low voice. "Kari, I don't know how to explain it. I just woke up one morning and saw myself like this." She paused, tears forming in her eyes. "I used to be beautiful, Kari. People used to admire me. They brought gifts to my parents, hoping to marry me one day. But everything changed in one night." Kari's eyes softened as he listened. "My father was ashamed of me," Adigo continued. "He told my mother to take me away from the village because people were laughing at him." Adigo did not tell Kari about what the native doctor said about true love being the cure for her condition. She was too shy to mention it, and she felt it was useless because who would ever love her now? Kari took a deep breath, and his eyes looked sad. "Adigo, I am so sorry you went through all that." Adigo wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "It's okay. I have accepted it." Kari shook his head. "Don't say that, Adigo. All will be well." Adigo forced a small smile. "Thank you, Kari." Days later, Adigo's mother began to recover gradually. She could now sit up and help Adigo with some chores, even though she still coughed sometimes and felt weak. Adigo was so happy to see her mother getting better. One morning, after they ate a small meal Kari brought, Adigo sat beside her mother on the mat, telling her everything that had happened while she was sick. "Mama, people were calling me a spirit. They ran away when they saw me," Adigo said with tears. Her mother looked at her and held her hand. "My daughter, you are not a spirit. You are my child, and you are still a human being." Adigo continued, "But Mama, it was so hard. I was so ashamed." Her mother sighed. "It is not your fault, my child. People fear what they don't understand." Adigo smiled a little. "But Mama, Kari helped us. He brought us food and water. He did not run away from me." Adigo's mother nodded and smiled. "May God bless that young man." Adigo's eyes shone. "Mama, Kari told me not to give up, that all will be well." Her mother held Adigo's hand tightly. "And it will, my child. Don't lose hope." Kari continued to visit them every day, bringing different gifts. Sometimes he brought firewood, sometimes a basket of cassava, and other times fruits like mangoes and bananas. Kari would help them fetch water from the stream. Sometimes he even helped Adigo's mother in their small backyard farm to clear the weeds while Adigo watched her heart feeling warm. The villagers started noticing Kari's frequent visits to Adigo's hut. Some people would whisper as Kari passed by with a basket on his head, heading to Adigo's house. One afternoon, as Kari was helping Adigo's mother pound yam in the small mortar outside the hut, a woman appeared, her face angry and her hands on her waist. It was Kari's mother. "Kari!" she shouted. "What are you doing here?" Kari turned slowly, dropping the pestle gently. "Mama, good afternoon." "Don't greet me." Carrie's mother shouted. "What are you doing with this girl? Do you want her spirit to follow you to your house?" Adigo, who was washing plates nearby, froze. Her heart started beating fast, and she looked down in shame. "Mama, please, lower your voice," Carrie said calmly. Carrie's mother did not listen. "I warned you to stay away from this girl. Look at her. She is a curse. She will bring shame to our family." Carrie looked at his mother firmly. "Mama, Adigo is not a curse. She is a human being." Carrie's mother hissed and turned to Adigo's mother. "You, woman, warn your daughter to stay away from my son. If not, you will see what I will do." Adigo's mother was silent, looking down, while Adigo's eyes filled with tears. She quickly ran inside the hut, hiding her face. Carrie's mother shouted a few more insults before leaving angrily, her wrapper swinging as she walked away. After she left, Carrie knocked gently on the door. "Adigo, please come out." Adigo slowly came out, tears on her face. "Carrie, please stop coming here. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." Carrie looked at her with kind eyes. "Adigo, I am no longer a child. I have my own house, my own farm, my livestock, and I cook my own food. Why should my mother make decisions for me like I am a child?" Adigo looked down. "But Carrie, people will talk." "Let them talk," Carrie said, smiling softly. "They are already talking, but I know what I want." Adigo was quiet, and she felt a warmth in her heart that she had not felt in a long time. Carrie continued visiting, ignoring the whispers of the villagers and the anger of his mother. He would sit with Adigo under the mango tree near their hut, telling her stories and making her laugh, even though her laughter was soft and sad. At first, Carrie came to help Adigo because he felt pity for her, seeing how people treated her unfairly. But as days passed, Carrie began to see something special in Adigo. He saw her inner beauty, her kindness, her patience, and her quiet strength even in shame and suffering. He saw how she cared for her mother and how she always said thank you, even for the smallest help. Carrie's heart began to beat faster every time he saw Adigo smile, even with her thin face. He started dreaming about her, wishing he could help her become well again. One evening, as the sun was setting, Carrie looked at Adigo as she sat by the doorway, peeling cassava. "Adigo," Carrie said softly. Adigo looked up. "Yes, Carrie." Carrie's eyes were serious. "I want you to know that I do not care what people say. I do not see you as a spirit. I see you as Adigo, a beautiful soul." Adigo's eyes widened, and tears started to form. "Carrie." Carrie took a deep breath. "I want you to be mine, Adigo. I want to take you to places where we can find help for you. I am willing to do anything so that you can be fine again." Adigo was speechless. She looked at Carrie, tears rolling down her face, and she felt something warm in her chest, something she had not felt in a long time. Adigo dropped the small knife and the cassava she was peeling on the floor. Her eyes were wide, and her heart was beating fast. For the first time since she became like a skeleton, she hugged Carrie. Carrie was surprised, but he hugged her back, wrapping his strong arms around her thin body carefully, as if he was hugging something precious. Adigo's voice was soft and shaking. "Thank you, Carrie. Thank you." Carrie did not say anything. He just closed his eyes, holding her quietly. Adigo wanted to tell Carrie about what the native doctor had said, about how only true love could bring her healing, but she decided to keep it in her heart. She wanted to see if Carrie truly meant everything he was saying to her, or if the native doctor was right. After some time, Kari pulled back a little and looked into her eyes. Adigo, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Adigo nodded, smiling, and Kari left that evening, promising to come the next day. That night, Adigo could not sleep well. She lay on her mat beside her mother, staring at the wooden roof. She turned from one side to the other, but sleep did not come. She kept thinking about Kari, about the way he looked at her, about the way he said she was not a curse. Her heart was light, and she felt warmth inside her, a feeling she had not felt for a very long time. She stood up quietly and looked at her mother, who was sleeping peacefully. The moonlight came in through the small window, and Adigo looked outside. The stars were bright, and the air was cool. She went back to lie down, and slowly she fell asleep. Early the next morning, it was not even dawn yet, but Adigo woke up very early. She opened her eyes, and for some reason she felt happy. She did not know why, but her heart was dancing inside her. She looked at her mother, who was still sleeping, her chest rising and falling softly. She turned her eyes towards the small window, and it was still dark outside, but she could hear the roosters crowing in the distance, calling the morning to come. Adigo did not understand why she was feeling this happy, but she hugged herself and smiled, closing her eyes for a moment. Slowly, the darkness outside began to change into the light of dawn. The birds started singing, and the wind blew gently into the hut. Adigo's mother stretched on the mat and slowly opened her eyes. "Good morning, Mama," Adigo said with a soft smile. But before her mother could reply, she screamed loudly, her eyes wide in fear. Adigo was shocked. "Mama, what is it?" Her mother sat up quickly, her hands shaking, looking at Adigo with wide, fearful eyes. Adigo's heart started beating fast. "Mama, why are you looking at me like that?" Adigo raised her hands to touch her mother, but then she stopped. Her hands were no longer thin, black and bony. They were smooth and shiny, her skin bright and soft. She gasped loudly and looked at her hands properly, turning them around, touching her face, her neck, and her arms. She stood up quickly and looked down at her legs. They were no longer like sticks, they were strong and smooth. Adigo ran to the small mirror they kept in the corner of the hut. She looked into it and gasped again. Lo and behold, Adigo was back to her former self, even more beautiful than before. Her hair was full and black, her eyes were bright, and her skin was shining like the morning sun. Adigo's mother could not believe what she was seeing. She ran outside the hut, screaming and shouting, rolling on the ground with joy and shock. "God, God, God, you have done it for me," she shouted. The neighbors who heard her shouting came out of their huts, wondering what had happened. "Has Adigo died?" some people whispered. "What is wrong with Mama Adigo?" others asked, following her to see what was happening. Adigo's mother was rolling on the ground, crying tears of joy. My daughter is back! God has done it for me!" People gathered around, confused and curious, and then they looked towards the hut. Adigo steps out. Slowly, Adigo stepped out of the hut. Her wrapper was tied around her waist, and her hair was tied with a small scarf. The morning sun fell on her, and her beauty shone like gold. The people who saw her opened their mouths in shock. They could not believe it. "That's her," her mother said, pointing at her in tears. "Is that Adigo?" one woman whispered. "But she was like a skeleton just yesterday," another man said, his eyes wide. Some people covered their mouths in disbelief, while others started clapping and smiling widely. Adigo's mother stood up, pointing at Adigo with tears in her eyes. "This is my daughter! This is Adigo! Look at what God has done!" She started narrating everything that had happened. How Adigo woke up one morning looking like a skeleton. How people ran away from her. How they were sent out of their village. How they suffered. And how God finally showed them mercy. News spread through the entire village like fire. People started leaving their work, leaving the farms and the market, coming to Adigo's hut to see if it was true. Some women came with their children, holding their hands tightly, looking at Adigo from a distance. Some young men, who once ran away from her, were now standing and admiring her beauty. "Adigo is so beautiful," one of them said. When Kari heard the news while working on his farm, he dropped his cutlass and ran as fast as he could to Adigo's hut. When he arrived, there was already a crowd, but Kari did not stop to look at Adigo. Instead, he ran straight to Adigo's mother, panting heavily. "Mama, Mama, what happened? Where is Adigo?" Kari asked, his eyes full of worry. Adigo's mother was crying tears of joy. "Kari, look at your wife." She pointed towards Adigo, who was standing under the mango tree, the morning sun shining on her. Kari turned and looked, and he froze. There, standing beautifully, was Adigo. Her beauty was so stunning that Kari almost thought he was dreaming. Adigo's eyes met Kari's, and tears filled her eyes as she smiled. Kari slowly walked towards Adigo, his hands shaking, his eyes not leaving her face. "Adigo, is it really you?" Kari asked, his voice shaking. Adigo nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Yes, Kari, it is me." Kari fell on his knees, tears falling from his eyes. "Thank you, God, thank you." Adigo bent down and touched his shoulder. "Kari, stand up." Kari stood up slowly, looking at her, still in shock. Adigo took a deep breath. "Kari, there is something I did not tell you before." Kari looked at her, waiting. Adigo continued. "The native doctor once told us that I would remain like that until I find true love. Only then would I be healed." Kari's eyes widened. "Adigo!" Adigo smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Kari, for loving me when no one else would. Thank you for helping me find myself again." Kari burst into tears and hugged Adigo tightly, holding her as if he would never let her go. People around started clapping, some shouting with joy, some crying with happiness as they watched them. After Adigo became beautiful again, the whole village could not stop talking about her. Whenever she came out to fetch water or sweep in front of their hut, young men would loiter around, pretending to pass by or smile at her unnecessarily, just to get her attention. "Good morning, Adigo," they would shout, some even bending as if greeting a queen. Adigo would just smile politely and continue with her work, remembering the days they laughed at her and ran away when she begged for water or food. Even the young girls in the village could not match Adigo's beauty now. Her skin shone like the morning sun, her eyes sparkled like stars, and her smile could melt even the hardest heart. Kari saw how young men were hanging around Adigo's hut, and his heart began to beat fast. He told himself, "I will not let another man come and take Adigo away. She is mine and I love her." So Kari took the bull by the horns. One evening, he went to his mother's hut and told her, "Mama, I want to marry Adigo." Kari's mother was shocked at first. She was silent for a while, then tears formed in her eyes, and she nodded. "My son, I was wrong about Adigo. Please bring her to greet me. I want to beg her for forgiveness." The next day, Kari took Adigo and her mother to his mother's hut. Kari's mother knelt down immediately, tears rolling down her cheeks. "My daughter, please forgive me for all the bad things I said about you," she cried. Adigo helped her up and smiled. "Mama, I have forgiven you. Thank you for accepting me." According to the village customs, Kari needed to seek Adigo's father's blessing before marrying her. Adigo's mother told Kari, "My son, you have to go to her father's village and tell him your intention." So Kari prepared himself, took some tubers of yam, a keg of palm wine, and a few gifts, and began his journey to Adigo's father's village. When Kari arrived, he found Adigo's father sitting under a mango tree before their hut, drinking palm wine with some men. He greeted him and sat down, telling him everything. "Papa Adigo, I have come to seek your blessing. I want to marry your daughter Adigo," Kari said respectfully. Mama Moyo, who had been listening nearby, burst into laughter. "Which Adigo?" she mocked. "The skeleton girl. You want to marry a spirit." She continued laughing loudly, clapping her hands in mockery, while some men chuckled. Kari did not tell them that Adigo was now beautiful again. He smiled and simply said, "You will see on the day of the introduction." Adigo's father, who had never visited to see his daughter since she left, only nodded. "We shall see." The day of the introduction arrived. It was early in the morning, and Adigo and her mother dressed up. They covered Adigo's head and face with a beautiful veil. They packed their small bag and began the long walk to Adigo's father's village, passing through the narrow bush path, crossing small streams, and stopping to rest under trees. As they approached the village, people began to gather, whispering and pointing. "That must be Adigo's mother, but is that the spirit girl?" some said surprised, and others laughing quietly. When they entered the compound, Moyo saw them first. She stood up and started laughing loudly. "Mama, come and see the masquerade's mother has come." Mama Moyo came out too, folding her arms and laughing. "Masquerade, welcome!" They laughed so hard that tears rolled down their cheeks, and some villagers joined, waiting to see Adigo. Adigo stood quietly, her head still covered with the veil. She held her mother's hand, breathing softly. Slowly, she lifted her hands and removed the long veil. Gasps filled the air. Moyo and her mother screamed so loud that even people in the next compound came running. They fell to the ground, rolling and screaming in shock. "It's not possible! This is not possible!" Adigo stood there, shining with beauty, her skin glowing, her eyes bright, her smile peaceful. Mama Moyo suddenly stood up, her body shaking, her eyes rolling. I confess," she screamed. "I am a witch. I was the one who made Adigo look like a skeleton. It was me. Forgive me." People were shocked, covering their mouths. Some shouted, "A witch! She is a witch!" Moyo also fell to the ground, crying. But it was too late. Right before everyone, Moyo and her mother began to shrink. Their bodies became thin and dry, their skins wrinkled, and their eyes sank into their heads. In moments, they looked exactly like skeletons, their bodies shaking, and they rolled on the ground, crying for help. People were afraid. Some ran, while others stood, shouting prayers. The elders of the village came forward with canes. "Leave this village! Leave and never return!" Moyo and her mother, looking like skeletons, picked up their wrappers and slowly walked away, crying and begging, but nobody listened. They were chased out of the village, never to return again. Adigo's father fell on his knees before Adigo and her mother, crying loudly, "My wife, my daughter, please forgive me. I was foolish. Please forgive me for sending you away." Adigo's mother lifted him up gently, tears in her eyes. "We forgive you." Adigo hugged her father. "I forgive you, Papa." The villagers watched, clapping and thanking God for the restoration and forgiveness in the family. The day of the wedding finally came. The entire village was decorated with palm fronds and flowers. Women pounded yam, cooked egusi soup, and roasted bushmeat. Young girls danced around, singing songs for Adigo. When Adigo came out in her beautiful wedding attire, the entire village shouted with joy. "She is so beautiful," the young men whispered among themselves, wishing she was theirs. Kari stood, dressed in a fine native attire, his heart full of joy as he saw Adigo walking towards him with her mother. They exchanged vows under the mango tree before Adigo's father's hut. The drummers beat their drums, and the flute players played sweet melodies. Children danced, and old women ululated in joy. Kari and Adigo smiled at each other, holding hands, knowing that true love had conquered evil, shame, and fear. As they danced, Adigo whispered in Kari's ear, "Thank you for loving me when no one else would." Kari smiled and replied, "Thank you for being strong, my love." They danced under the sun, and the entire village joined them, celebrating love, forgiveness, and the victory of light over darkness. Thank you so much for watching. We have beautiful stories coming your way. Please support this channel by liking, commenting. We love you.